In my opinion, the city officials haven't really begun to show any attempt in real transparency, especially now after being exposed for backing a $300 million loan so that 4 guys can start a monkey breeding facility. They should be bending over backwards to prove that they aren't involved in any more shady backroom deals. Thankfully, the community has someone like Tory Green to remind the officials what transparency is and how much it matters to us.
This lack of transparency breeds suspicion and disengagement, threatening the bond between the government and the people it serves.
By speaking up, she also let them know that taxpayers are paying attention and researching the laws and policies that the city promised to follow.
So now I would like to take this opportunity to read the actual laws surrounding executive sessions, mostly for the citizens, but possibly as a refresher for all of our local government officials.
This past Tuesday, October 15th, during a regular city council meeting, one of the agenda items was the termination of a lease with Kitchen South, a local food truck that offers a nice selection of African American cuisine and other classics. Roy Oliver, the newly appointed city manager, went over the conditions of the termination, which I'll go over later in this video. When they asked if anyone had any questions or comments, no one said a word, and I know why. Because I was one of them.
Have anybody in the community like to ask a question about this issue? He wants to move out, yes, ma'am.
No, this is not the marina.
It's not the marina. This is the it's all right.
The full details of this matter weren't mentioned. But when I got to my car, I remembered that this was the same business that another citizen, Bruce Kerbal, had questioned. He wanted to know if the tenant was getting special treatment, not only by securing that location, but also being allowed to fall about 5 months behind on rent, roughly $7,500. I actually witnessed this firsthand at the meeting in August. I have to say, the city council was pretty cold to him, kind of like how cold they were to us who were fighting the monkey breeding facility.
And y'all are giving it away, and I'm very disappointed.
Thank you. Have others that would like to address the council?
This citizen made some interesting points about the relationship between the city and the tenant. Like, he brought up the possibility that the city didn't advertise the space as available for rent, so citizens didn't know that this new source of revenue was even an option. Shouldn't taxpayers have had the chance to ask questions like, will this rental income help lower taxes in any way? He also mentioned a possibility that the tenant got credit for improvements made before a lease was even signed. He said he sent a letter to the city about all of this before bringing it up at the meeting. That's why he finally came forward expressing his disappointment in their lack of response.
I sent to all of you a letter regarding the condition of the Kitchen South lease.
He looked at the records and couldn't find any notices of late or missing payments, even though the tenant was 5 months behind. That's odd because according to the lease, oral agreements aren't valid for this relationship.
He got over $7,500 behind, and the city never wrote him a letter to get him to get collected up.
Any landlord or tenant knows that late payment notices exist to serve as proof that the tenant was reminded of their missed payments, just in case anything goes to court. Also, verbal agreements aren't allowed when it comes to improvements either. The original lease says that the tenant can't make any upgrades without written consent from the landlord. I haven't personally dug deep into this yet, but this is what the citizen said. And he claimed he didn't see any consent in the records either. And if you know this guy, you know he probably knows how to actually get the records. In the termination agreement, it says the tenant put in over $9,000 in upgrades to the property. Was there consent for this? The termination agreement says it's unfair and illegal for the city to not reimburse the tenant for the $9,000 in improvements that they made. But the original lease doesn't mention anything about reimbursing for improvements, only repairs over $350. Is there a written agreement where the city promised to reimburse this tenant for upgrades? The tenant reportedly paid $33,270 in rent. The original lease was supposed to last from June 1st, 2022 to December 2026, which was also extended to January 2027. But it ended this October on the 15th. That's 28 months and 14 days, but let's keep it simple and stick to the 28 months. If you do the math and multiply 28 months by the $1,500 a month rent, that comes to $42,000. Subtract the alleged $7,500 in unpaid rent, and you're left with $34,500, which matches closely what the concerned citizen was referring to. Now, I know there's a difference in $1,230, so we're going to say about $6,270 is still in question. The city also agreed to accept $40,000 worth of kitchen equipment from the tenant as assets.
Basically $40,000 in, that's used value equipment in this particular lease. But what the city would do is accept that equipment. We would go in and put asset tags on that, and then we could market this kitchen as move-in ready for a next tenant.
But why? Why is the tenant essentially giving the city $40,000? This seems strange. And if it weren't for that citizen bringing it up earlier, no one would even know to question it. Now, I believe it's up to the officials to be open and transparent about these discrepancies. They should have shared all this with proof, clearing up any wrong information at the last city council meeting this October 15th, before asking us if we have any questions or comments. Instead, it seems like they hope that we forgot what Kerbo mentioned at the previous meeting, and clearly we did forget, hence why we didn't have any questions or comments. And that brings me to the point of this video. If you don't pay attention, if you don't go to the meetings, you don't know what's being done right or wrong. I'm hoping that people get a full, honest, and detailed explanation for this, because if not, it raises more curiosity about what else might not be done legally or with good ethics in mind. Also, before I go, let me clarify something. I have nothing against Kitchen South. I'm someone who treasures small businesses, and we need more of them. Far more than we need chemical plants and monkeys being bred. This isn't about Kitchen South. Yes, it's owned by the chairman of the Downtown Development Authority, and yes, that same board has a member who also serves as the city's current attorney. Legally, there's nothing wrong with that. And that's not the issue here. If this was my business and I received these alleged special allowances from the city, I would expect people to question the relationship and the dealings in the same way. Bainbridge is growing. And with growth, and like any other big town or big city, there's accountability. And we ask questions.
And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.